So thank you everybody for coming back. And for those of you who didn't finish the activities in your breakout room, feel free to go back. Those slides are open. You can continue filling out the contents. You can also go to the spatial chat at any time. That's open for the next 36 hours or so. So anyone can go there and continue to have discussions with arbitrarily large and dynamic groups. In the meantime, we're towards the end of the day. I would just like to invite some of the NSF senior management people to say a few closing words to end the day. And then once they're done, we will conclude and we'll start again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which unfortunately for those of you on the West Coast is early. But for those of you in Europe, it's not so late, hopefully. And thank you everybody for coming. And then, I don't know if James, are you going first or?
Yes. Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Flo. Hi, everybody. So many familiar faces. I wish I could meet you for a drink afterwards and talk to you. And hi, Kristen.
Hi, Jim.
So anyways, it's really great to see at least the 6x36 of you I can see on my screen. God, and I get all these pop-up windows. So I hope you're enjoying yourselves. And one of the things we're getting our job done here at NSF, but I got to say it's a lot of focus on process, and I don't get those little intermittent fixes of science like this that really keep me going during the week. So we're trying to figure out how to get that back into our lives in this new normal. And I know it's really much harder on some than others. So feel for you guys that are having to struggle a lot during these times. First thing I'd really just like to do is thank you for your participation, for your interest. There was an inordinate amount of work. I mean, we don't have a lot of neuroscientists at NSF. As most of you know, we're stretched pretty thin across all the disciplines of science, from geoscience to social science to computer science. And so that's a strength, but it's harder to sort of go deeper into things. So when the Brain Initiative came out, back in 2014, we figured, where do we sit? We hardly have any money compared to NIH, but we have things NIH doesn't have. So where can we sort of leverage our connections with all these disciplines to really bring an interdisciplinary approach to neuroscience, which inherently is very interdisciplinary, as you all know. But the nice thing is we fund folks from geo, we're close to the community, so we can mobilize things in ways I think that only, NSF can do. So in the beginning, we did things like we called for early concept grants to really figure out where the opportunities were for the newest and mind-blowing technologies, right? Sorry for the pun, but really, I mean, the technologies that were emerging were pretty mind-blowing. And to sort of get them to the researchers that could address the most compelling questions of our day in neuroscience. And that's sort of what's been motivating us from the beginning of the Brain Initiative, is how do you link this diverse research communities around themes that wouldn't normally be addressable in a single lab by a single PI. As interdisciplinary as a single PI might be able to be, there's a lot of smart people out there. There's still there's probably more that any individual doesn't know than they do know. So we try to figure out mechanisms to do that, and we use things like ideas labs, and we started a new program called Integrative, what the heck is the name of that one? Integrative Strategies for Understanding Neural and Cognitive Systems. We call it NCS, and that was really to build interdisciplinary teams around research questions. But NeuroNex was sort of this big vision we had, but it takes time to organize these things internally and to get the funding calls lined up and to get all the directorates to sign in and say, yeah, this is a good idea. So in the first cohort, the idea was really to stand up some hubs, okay, neurotechnologies sort of, but give the awardees the mandate to figure out what researchers could use those technologies the most to advance the science at a sort of a larger scale, and it's sort of a team scale science. So the idea with NeuroNex was to do that. And it's a fairly expensive program from an NSF perspective on the budget. So we knew we couldn't like do competitions every year. We just didn't have it built into our budget. So we were going to stagger these hubs and then ultimately fund teams of researchers that would organize around large research questions that might be addressable by linking their expertise with the technologies at hand. What was really exciting for me was when we talked about this we talk to lots of other funding agencies, and when we go about our business, the funding agencies heard what we were doing, like, God, we wish we could do something like that. So we ended up, Flo and I drove to, she showed me how to drive on the Autobahn. It was amazing. I never had been to Germany, and here I am driving a Mercedes, I don't know how, it was all in kilometers, but we were making connections with the German funding foundations, and they were so excited to sort of, in this concept, to do this and to really build global partnerships and accelerate neuroscience. That's all we're a funding agency. We try to like streamline our investments and maybe get to an end state of knowledge that we wouldn't have done had we not done it. So it was really exciting to see all the we had the partners that were even more excited than the partners we have, but for certain political reasons or administrative reasons, they couldn't sign on. But we just had so much enthusiasm for this program across the globe. It just was really sort of rewarding to see that. And then, as you note, in this last competition for NeuroNex, we had 4 international funding agencies from 3 countries that put a lot of money down. So we get to leverage our dollars, and you guys get to leverage the expertise across the globe. So I really think it's something that NSF has been pretty good at. We have an international office that we couldn't have done this without the relationships they have with the international funding partners that they've built with over the decades. So anyways, we look at this as really a beacon of collaboration, networking, bringing in disciplines, and going global. That's how we look at this. And we're excited about it. And right now, there's a lot of transition going on in different places. And we can't really speak to the future in concrete ways. But what I can tell you is that the program officers you've all grown to know quite well, because we don't have a lot of them at NSF that do neuroscience, and the ones we have work tirelessly to develop these programs on top of their day jobs. All right, this is all extra, but this is, again, they're excited too, and it's the passion they put into it. But what I want to say is we look at these networks of developers, technology developers, and groups of users as sort of an ecosystem of neuroscience that wouldn't have really flourished without this program. But what I wanted to say is, when you write your proposals, you see the opportunities, but as you get your awards and move into the future, new opportunities arise to bring people in, okay? We don't have any calls specifically to do that, but if you see something, we really want to encourage you to reach out to your program officers and say, I see this opportunity, anything you can do to help, or what can we do to navigate these things? So we really want all the great work you guys are doing to be leveraged by as many folks in as many countries as possible. That's the vision, and you guys are the heart of it. And I'm really excited to be able to say hi and thanks and let you know what we're thinking. And that's about it. Now within bio, it's really been a joint effort between our Division of Biological Infrastructure, which focuses on developing research infrastructure that's broadly applicable across not just neuroscience, but physiology and developmental biology. And I used to manage a neurodevelopment program over in Flo's division, iOS. And it was like, I thought I could die in that job, the number of fascinating proposals but then I ended up moving over to DBI. That's a long story. But anyways, but what I wanted to say is it's been a real partnership between the Division of Biological Infrastructure, which works on tools, and the research division of iOS. And so the reason I'm saying that is because Donal Manahan is the division director of iOS. And he and I have shown up to every Society for Neuroscience meeting that the government will allow us to travel to together. And we sort of are becoming a bit of a roadshow for this program. He has embraced it as a rotating division director in a wonderful way. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm a permanent Fed and he's a rotating, I don't want to call him a Fed. He's a faculty member and a Fed. But he's going to give you a few words as well. So Donal, I hope you're there because I just introduced you and I can't see the participant list.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, definitely I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you very much for those comments. Just to quickly say as a couple of things that I wanted to add to. This is the third NeuroNex meeting I've attended, and it's extraordinary to see an advantage of the virtual world. We can bring in so many more people. I know there's lots of disadvantages, but one advantage is the ease at which we can move across time zones and countries and so forth. So it's extraordinary to see the scale of engagement in NeuroNex. What has really impressed me in attending the NeuroNex and helping co-fund it, of course, as a division director, is this sort of team-based model approach. Because lots of folks say this in science, right? They, as we say, they take the resources and disappear into their own very well-established lab group. What really stands out to me in NeuroNex is the fact that the model is working, right? That it truly is working. And I can say that with some confidence because I deal with an awful lot of these things in biology that do great science, but they don't necessarily build great team-based approach science. And with NeuroNex, you are really standing out as a unique community, in my opinion, in the life sciences. So I want to just compliment you all on that and how impressive that approach is, which I realize it's actually that other step beyond just worrying about one's own individual lab group and equipment and so on and so forth. So firstly, super congratulations on actually making it work. I direct the division inside biology at NSF that has the word integrative in it. And we're very proud of that word. And so, for example, the neural systems cluster is in integrative biology at NSF. But integrative biology is surely one of the great words of the future of biology in the 21st century. How do we integrate across molecules, cells, organs, tissues, behavior, etc.? Everybody has strong opinions on how to approach that. Nobody disagrees with the premise, but there's often an intense disagreement on the mechanisms to get there, right? Even administratively within universities across the world. What I think, again, as a leadership role for the neuroscience community and the NeuroNex group in particular, is you show how to do this. You show how integrative biology is possible across scales of biology. And the more you communicate that message and how to approach it across all of the life sciences, I think will be to the betterment of the life sciences, all of which are looking for mechanisms on how to integrate across scales. In other words, moving us out of discipline-based, say, PhDs in cell molecular biology or PhDs in ecology evolution, all of the dozen or so PhD programs we've divided the life sciences up into. The big push, of course, in the 21st century is to look at convergence across these. Lots of groups want to do it. You are doing it. And so please keep keeping that message out, even if it's just occasional like mini reviews, you know, on this concept of how to make integrative biology work. So within this division, and it's just, as I said, important because it has the word integrative in it and has developmental biology, neuroscience, and just to name a few, the focus is on how you understand genomes, phenomes, and phenotypes, and how all of these processes crosstalk in rapidly developing environments. That could be a cell environment, it could be the environment of a tissue, or it could be the external environment. And so there are three drivers behind this at NSF. First is what we call the big idea, understanding the rules of life, predicting phenotype, which is across all of NSF. And as Jim said, this brings in engineers, it brings in chemists, physicists, mathematicians, computational folks. So that's a big driver of how we're approaching this problem. And I also hear other countries are even using sort of similar plays on words around those kinds of conversations. So it's, of course, it's a century-old idea how to integrate, I guess we can call it nature and nurture, right? That goes back, gosh, to Darwin's time in the 150 years ago or so. The second thing is we've decided to try and encourage this crosstalk using integration institutes. And several of those integration institutes in the US have just started as a result of, as we call, reassembling or reintegrating biology across scales. You might take a look at not just the solicitation, but also what actually happened last year. And we plan to do this for several years into the future, an idea of looking for integration across scales, which includes, really importantly, how do we train the next generation of early career scientists to think integratively. And specifically within neuroscience and NeuroNex, I mean, what I foresee, and I'm very impressed with NeuroNex on doing, is to try and have truly a deeper integration of theory now just being beyond computational, theory and experiment. Much prized in biology, hard to attain, and again, cheers to NeuroNex for taking on that complex thing as a leadership in neuroscience. And then the second thing, and this ties in with what Jim just said, the role of NSF in this is we can take on questions that are outside of the mission agency's questions. So for one example is we can take an advantage of, say, evolutionary diversity and to work on what people might call non-model organisms that might give an advantage over the, quote, model organisms. There was an entire National Academy of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine report on this, on sort of the future of, I called it functional genomics, that was just published in July, that was funded by NSF. And in there is that concept. It brought together people from NIH, NSF, and other agencies, and international participations as well, as to this question of taking advantage of evolution. I bet you're going to start to see some of the doors open up a little bit on this concept. And this is a great crosstalk currently in the building behind me. It's a virtual building, the NSF building, but a great conversation inside that building and across the river, so to speak, with NIH about where the crosstalk is between what NSF can do and complement what NIH and vice versa. So thank you so much again for contributing to this important meeting. I hope I've tried to convey to you, you really matter. This approach really matters. And try and, as best you can, convey that word in articles and opinion pieces, etc., to get out how this is working, especially now in this third meeting of NeuroNex, where you clearly have demonstrated you can do it. And life sciences and the science community in general needs to hear this. So thanks again for everything. I'm really sorry I can't hang out in the meeting like we did at the last two, but I hope you're finding this experience to be extremely positive. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Donal and Jim. I'm going to hand it back to Joshua.
Thanks, Flo. Thank you, Jim and Donal and Flo and everybody for all your participation, everyone who asked questions in the chat, online, in speaking, including Becca, Ed, Mark, Najba, everybody, Vicky, Greg. Please come back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Feel free, like I said, to stay, enjoy Zoom, enjoy the spatial chat. Keep talking about science, keep talking about diversity, and we'll see everybody for sure tomorrow. Thank you.